Well, good morning, Raul. Thank you for being on the Born or Made podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. This is a great place.
Yeah, we're excited that you're here today. So I like to start off by asking, so where were you born?
I was born in Quito, Ecuador, in South America.
Ecuador, really? So let's talk about that. So you're born there. How long were you there till you left that country?
So I was born in Ecuador. My family's born and raised in Ecuador. My father was in the my grandfather was in the military, so he put me in military school when I was in kindergarten. So from kindergarten to third grade, I was in military school. So that's what a lot of people ask me, do I have a military background? I never actually joined the military, but I was conditioned as a military, education when I was in kindergarten to third grade. So my parents came to New York when I was 8 years old. And then I came to New York when I was 11 years old.
Okay, now did you speak any English when you got here?
No, we learned a little bit of English in Ecuador, but mainly I was thrown into the wolves when I got here.
So you dumped right into the public system. So you're sixth grade-ish? What grade?
Sixth grade, they have something called ESL, English as a second language.
Yep, very well. Yep.
So I was in ESL the first 2 years. But then I realized that when I went to middle school, not knowing how to speak English was messing up my style with the girls. So that was the motivation to learn English, because I wanted to meet girls. I didn't want to have just a small number of girls to pick from my class. I wanted to have the whole school and meet all the girls in school. So I learned English real quick. That was a motivation in seventh grade.
Did you? One guy I interviewed talked about he watched cartoons. How did you learn to speak English? Did you just grind it out and talk to people and say, how do you say this, or how did you really?
It's funny you say that, because my father was working in a mechanic shop in the Bronx. He was a body shop man. He would fix the cars when they got into car accidents. So he brought home one day a box of tapes. And he said, listen to these tapes so you could learn how to speak English. And he didn't know this, but I started listening to those tapes. And in those tapes was Ice Cube, NWA, Ice-T. So every night I would put those songs on, and subconsciously I'm listening to hip hop, learning how to speak English. So that's why I have a tendency to curse a lot. It's in my subconscious mind, all the hip hop in my mind.
That's too funny. Wow. So you finally start learning English. Well, first of all, did it help you meet the girls?
Yes. Well, a funny story is when I was in seventh grade, I had a Cuban ESL teacher. And in eighth grade, I went into the regular school system. So I created this persona, Raul from the Bronx. So I didn't want to be the ESL Raul from the previous year. So I created this other version of me, Raul from the Bronx. All the girls were like, man, this new kid from the Bronx, it's this Raul from the Bronx. So when my other class from seventh grade went to the lunchroom, I turned my back as if I ignored them, as if I didn't know who they were. Then my ESL teacher from the previous year came to me and said, Raul, never forget where you come from. You were here with us last year. Who do you think you are? So she ripped me a new one in front of all the girls. So the Raul from the Bronx lasted for a couple of weeks. After that, I had to go back to the same old Raul.
That's too funny. So you're kind of middle school. You're starting to kind of figure your way out, understanding things. Were you starting to do some sports, or were you more academic? What did you gravitate
my
toward?
interaction with the U.S., or my integration, I should say, was more like being bullied. The first week of getting to school, I met this guy, and this guy starts to talk to me. I don't know what he was saying. All I said was yes, yes, yes. And later on, I found out that he was saying, hey, you think you could beat me up? You think you could take me? I was like, yes, 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 yes. So we scheduled a fight after school. So I got bullied for the first couple of years, and then I had to learn how to toughen up. So my integration was pretty much welcome to the jungle. Like, the strongest will survive. The funny thing is, I'm in Connecticut. Thank God my father brought us here when he was in New York, in the Bronx or Brooklyn. So I'm getting bullied in Connecticut, which, now looking back, it was a blessing, because, it wasn't that bad.
No kidding. So you finish up high school here in Stamford area? Is that where were you at exactly?
So we finished high school in Stamford. I started going to the wrong side of the tracks because of a lot of the bullying, and had to figure out how to navigate that. So I joined a gang when I was in 16, 17. And I thought I was a tough guy, surrounded with a bunch of tough guys. And it's funny, I always tell this story that I was going to the gang meetings, and the gang meetings that you have to pay dues. You have to contribute. You either sell drugs, or you figured out how to you have to bring money to the table, right? And they talk about protection, like you have to bring money to so they could buy protection, right? So I'm asking my mom to give me money so I could pay my gang dues. So he's a tough guy going into the gang meetings, and my mom is fronting my dues to the guy because I didn't want to sell drugs. I didn't want to do what everybody was doing. I just wanted to be part of the environment. I always felt that you become like the people you surround yourself with. And because I was being bullied for such a long time, I had to surround myself with the toughest guys in the school so I could have that environment. But later on, it backfired on me because the kids that I was hanging around with, they were too rowdy, and then we got actually kicked out of the gang before we turned 18. So if we would have turned 18 and got initiated on the gang, it would have been a whole different life. So it was a blessing that the kids that I was with, they were too flashy, and the gang members said, you know what, you guys are bringing too much heat to the gang. You guys are getting kicked out. So it was a bunch of us, and we got kicked out, and all of a sudden we had a lot of what we call beef in high school with like the whole school. So we had to learn real quick how to adapt.
So following some of your stuff, reading, you were obviously at this point in your life, you're more of a follower at that point. I know you're more of a leader now. So what was that like being a follower? When was there a moment that you suddenly realized you didn't want to be that follower? You really wanted to be a leader? Talk about that.
So my father was having some back problems, some health issues. And we all thought it was more of, he was in a body shop, working hard. We thought it was just like muscle pain. He fall a couple of times. And so we took him to a neurologist and they did some tests. And I remember the doctor calling me to the office and asking me to translate this with my dad. He said, you're going to have to translate that your father has muscular dystrophy. He's going to lose his muscles, and eventually he's going to die young. So at that moment, imagine like an 18-year-old kid having to tell his father, which is, at that point, my father was my hero. Like, I looked up to him, that he's going to die young, he's going to lose his muscles, he's going to be in a wheelchair, and eventually he's not going to be able to even move. So I remember telling this to my dad, and my dad looked at me and said, like, these doctors don't know what they're talking about. Like, let's just continue with our life like nothing happened. But at 18, having that weight in your shoulders, I knew how to figure shit out. I couldn't be fucking around with what I was doing. At that moment, I had to figure it out. How do I not become a burden for my family and become an asset for the family? So that's when I started reading. I started going into sales, finding out because in my mind at that moment, it might as well have been somebody told me, your dad's going to die next year. Or like, he's going to be in a wheelchair next year. So it was a sense of urgency for me to get my shit together. So I couldn't be this kid who was running around with gangs or just messing around in life. I needed to grow up and I needed to figure it out, like, what's my next move? How do I bring value? How do I make money? Because at that moment, in my mind is what's the easiest way for me to make money without selling drugs? Because I knew that's not what I wanted. I saw a bunch of my friends going to jail, getting shot, and I said, that's not what I want to put my parents through.
Really? And so, wow, that's a moment of life that you don't forget, is it? I mean, that's deep. So you said you went into sales, you started reading. So reading, tell me about, what were you reading, like motivational stuff, or just just reading in general? Just
reading Think or Grow Rich, sales books, something that gets, helps me sharpen my skills. So I joined, and how I got into reading, because at 18, I was dating my girlfriend then, my wife now, we've been together since high school, but we started just looking at opportunities. Like I was hungry for an opportunity. I was hungry for something. I didn't know what it was. I thought I was going to go into car sales, insurance sales. So I met this guy, and he said, I'm going to hire you. Come to a meeting to see if you have what it takes. So I went to this meeting. It was a hotel in downtown Stanford, and it was a network marketing meeting. I didn't know what network marketing was. I don't know if you're probably familiar with Amway, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So I'm sitting there in the front row, and the guy is painting the plan, the vision, like the dream. Stop working 9 to 5, and you could have this, you could have that. So at that moment, it's an immigrant kid who never knew anything about entrepreneurship. Nobody in my family was an entrepreneur. And this guy is planting the seed of what you could do here in America if you work hard and if you become an entrepreneur. So at that moment, I was all in. I didn't know what I was going to sell, but I was all in. So I remember telling the guy, listen, whatever you need, like, I'm in. Like, what do I have to do? And he looked at my wife. My girlfriend says, "Are you guys engaged? Are you gonna get married?" I said, "No, this is my girlfriend." I was like, "Well, if you want to be in this business, you have to be committed." So I said to her, we gotta get married. Like at 18 years old, like we're gonna now
Really?
I'm committed. Like we gotta He sold me on, you gotta commit. You got to commit in anything in life. You don't get what you want. You only get what you're committed to do. So then they had a book of the month, and that's when I started reading. And I just became a student of sales, became a student of recruiting, became a student of bringing value. And within a year, we started making a little bit of money in that business, and we had a downline. They told me how to break the fear of talking to people. I remember going to the mall back in those days. It was social media. It was just you on business cards and sharing the business cards, sharing the message, and trying to recruit people into a business.
So you went to the mall and just sold to people?
I used to have 50 business cards, and I would not go home unless I gave out my 50 business cards to random strangers, strike a conversation. And what they told me, I remember until this day, form. Ask about family, occupation, recreation, and the message. So if I engage a conversation, say, hey, Larry, you're married, you're single, okay, great. What do you do? You tell me what you do. Okay, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies like? All right, are you open to a secondary income stream? Are you open for opportunities? Yeah, well, let me give you a business card. Let's connect and have some. See, that was 30 years ago, and it's still in the back of my mind, the message.
You do something 50 times a day, you're going to get good at it.
100%.
So did it take you a while to get over the fear? So for me, I consider myself a great sales guy, but cold calling is still hard. Like getting in there, but for you doing that, that's a great message. Like 50 reps, we talk about that, get your reps in. You were mastering that.
Well, it was because I believed it. So I believed that now that it was going to work. So I didn't have any misconceived notions of was this going to work or not. I just believed the guy who recruited me into it. So my wife and I, then we made a little bit of money. I had a job, a corporate job. And in one of the book of the months, it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. And that book changed my life because it talked about assets. It talked about the quadrant. You're an employee, you're self-employed, you're a business owner, and you are an investor. So in my mind, it's how do I become an investor? I don't want to work my butt off. I don't want to continue to grind. I'm 20 years old at that moment, and I started looking at real estate. I started looking at real estate, and I went to the mortgage company, and they pre-approved me because I had a good job. My wife had a job, and we bought our first property. Before we got married, we bought our first multifamily. I remember the closing. I had to sell her a car because we were short $4,000 for the closing. So we had to sell. So we sold her car. She was taking the bus to work. But we made ends meet, and we bought our first multifamily. So we moved in. I never paid rent. I went from my mother's house, living in my mother's house, to living in my own property. And I had a studio. It wasn't luxurious. I had a studio, a one-bedroom studio. I rented the whole house. My wife and I, we got married a couple of months later, and that was the beginning of we could probably invest in another real estate asset. So I bought another 6 months later. I bought another property with my brother, and we flipped it and made $100,000. And I thought I was rich. I thought man, I made it.
How many
man.
years ago was that?
I was 21 years old. I made $100,000. I never had that much money in my bank account.
Yeah.
So I went what every 21, 22-year-old would do, which is go down to the BMW dealer and say, hey man, give me the hottest car you have. I want a red BMW convertible. I made it in life, right? But I did because I didn't finish the book. I was halfway to the book. I didn't finish the book.
Great story.
Then I get into the book and it says the worst investment you could make is a car. Oh crap. So now I go back to the dealership and say, I'm sorry, man. I made a mistake. Can you refund me my $10,000 deposit? Because here, BMW, they don't care. So they give me back the money, and I bought another property, and then I made another $100,000, and then we started flipping properties with my brother, and we built a real estate company.
No kidding. Now, do you still own the original rental? Did you sell that?
No, I wish I didn't.
Yeah,
we own, and at one point we were buying so much properties. We had before I hit 30 years old. I remember my accountant calling me and saying, "Raul, you have a net worth of over $10 million. You have all these properties. That you're a young kid, amazing. You're one of my most successful clients. How did you do it?" All of a sudden I started believing in my own success. I had 100 employees. I built a real estate brokerage. I had a mortgage company, a real estate brokerage, and an investment company. So I was the man. At 30 years old, I was on the top of my game. And then 2008 happened.
I was going to say, don't tell me that was 2007.
Yeah, 2008 happened.
Yep.
And at that moment, I believed that I was going to weather the storm. I had this belief that people are going to fail. I'm going to push through. But as you know, it lasted longer than what people could hold.
Anybody ever thought?
I mean, right here on this corner was my mortgage company. We had a beautiful office, luxury. The guys were paying about $100,000 a month in rental in that office because it was kind of like the New York City look. We had like all the glass windows. It was like we were the owner of the company because I was one of the reps. I mean, the guy was a billionaire, but he ended up tanking the entire. I mean, the mortgage companies they went under. They went under.
Everybody, yes.
So I remember changing the name to another company. 3 months later, another company. 1 month later, another company. Then it started weekly, like the name of the companies of the mortgage company, because they were going under faster than we could actually put the name on the office. So I couldn't sustain it. I actually came to a Jesus moment with my wife, and I told her I can't pay for the mortgage. I want to foreclose on the property. I just can't take the pressure. And at that moment, Larry, I was sure that she was going to say, I'm done. Like, I'm going to move out. I'm going to go back with my parents. And she did something for me that until today I remember. She goes, I will live under a bridge if I have to, but I know it's not going to be forever because you're going to figure this out. And that does something to a man. Like when a woman believes in a man, we feel like we have to show up. I think if she would have said like, okay, it's okay, don't worry, let's move back to your parents or move back to my parents. If she would have let me out of the pressure, it would be a completely different story. Because I saw those men, how they just settle. And they just said, well, the market is the market, or, it's going to be, I try, but I fail. But because she believed and said, you're going to figure this out. Like, we'll live under a bridge, but you're going to figure this shit out. So I started like looking at where the opportunities. So if I'm going through this, I know there's thousands of people that are going through this. So I got an email from a guy who I don't even know how I signed. I mean, I'm kind of signing up constantly for education. So I signed up for this webinar. And here's this guy telling me you could make money on distressed assets and what's called REO, real estate owned by the bank. I never knew what REO was. So he said, here's the plan. Here's what you have to do. Here are the banks. He goes, and we have a seminar in Vegas, 2 days. Come and learn how to invest in distressed assets. So now I'm foreclosing on properties. I don't have money, but I have my American Express. So I put that, I remember $7,000 in my American Express, put everything on my credit card, hotel, flights, and everything. And I flew down there. There was about 30 people. And the guy's talking about here is how you could make millions of dollars because very few people know about this niche. So he gave us the blueprint. He gave us instructions, and I went back home, and I just started executing. I started calling the banks. I started calling the back in those days, the asset managers, right? At the same time, I started looking at the foreclosure lists on the court, and I was going every Monday to the court to look at who are the people who are foreclosing, how can I help them? Because it wasn't like, we were not taking advantage of people. We were helping them getting out of the foreclosure by acquiring their assets at a discount, doing what's called short sales. So I remember my name was on the docket. I'm foreclosing on properties. But then, in the other hand, I'm telling people I could help them by buying their properties. The lawyers used to hate me because, Raul, how do you have the balls to come to the court? You're losing your properties, but then you're actually here to pick up properties. I said, well, that's the past. That's mistakes from the past. This is where I'm going now. So I'm not focusing on, I'm dwelling on my mistakes. I'm focusing on the solution of what's possible if I get my shit together.
No kidding.
And then we made millions of dollars in distressed assets. I mean, like we were managing thousands of properties for banks. We picked up a lot of assets, and that was like, and we have very good niche on the market.
And how long did you continue down doing that?
About 4 or 5 years.
And then everything started settling after that. And then so you're kind of 2012, 2013.
So 2012, I remember sitting in my couch and waking up one morning. My son is looking down on me. And there's a half a bottle of tequila next to me that I haven't drank the night before.
Sounds familiar.
And my son is asking the question to my wife, what's wrong with daddy? And what he didn't know is that for the past 6 months, I was drinking every single night because I had this physical pain, Larry. It wasn't that I don't believe I was an alcoholic. I was trying to physically numb the pain of stress that I had.
Self-medication.
Doctor said it was all stress, it was all mental. There was nothing wrong with me. I thought I had cancer. I thought like there was something going on, but I couldn't sleep at night. I had this pain that would come in at night, and the only thing that would numb it was a couple of shots of tequila that eventually became half a bottle of tequila. And that's when I believe I went through what I call the tunnel. The tunnel when a man has to figure out who he is without his business, without the perception of what people think of him, because I was living on scarcity and I was making money. I had a beautiful family, but I lost my purpose. I wasn't going through a financial crisis. I was going through a purpose crisis.
Purpose crisis. So let's talk about that more. So you're at this point, you're trying to find out your purpose.
I'm trying to find out who am I?
Yeah. Why am I here?
What's the purpose of this? Is the purpose just as an entrepreneur? We have certain stages. We go through the survival stage. I call it the survival stage, trying to figure out how to survive the business. Then you go to the discovery stage. You discover what your niche is. And then you go to the transformation stage. That's when you're transforming your business. But most of us get stuck in the transformation stage because it's the exciting stage. It's like, we're tinkering, we're scaling. But if we don't go to what I call the awakened stage, the purpose stage, then what's it all for? At the end, money is energy. But if you only focus on your business and you're not focusing in every other area, eventually you're going to burn out. Eventually you're going to fail, or you're not going to be fulfilled. A man without purpose feels that he's failing.
So, what's your purpose? You got your little boy.
At that moment, I had to again, going back to what I said, figure this shit out, right? You have to figure shit out.
We talk about that all the time. We'll figure it out.
So I started, because when I do something, Larry, I go all in. I don't half-ass shit. Like, I'm not the type of guy that does things half-ass. So I signed up for personal development courses. I went to all the top courses, Tony Robbins, meditation retreats. I even went to India to meditate with monks. And one of the things that I found in my process is healing that version of me when I was 8 years old, not being with my parents for 3 years. And at that moment, I created this model of the world that I had to be successful so I wouldn't be abandoned anymore. So nobody could leave me. So at 8 years old. So then I never healed that part of me. I never paid, like every entrepreneur, we have trauma. Like, I don't care who you are. Like Elon Musk has trauma. Like Donald Trump has trauma. Everybody who's a high achiever, we have trauma. There's something that happened to us that created this model of the world. Like, I'm gonna be the best at what I could do, so nobody could ever leave me or think less of me or doubt me, right? But if we don't know how to find the gift in that, we're always gonna live on the feeling of not feeling enough, not having enough. I mean, I coach guys who have hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you don't have that healing of being enough, it's never going to be enough. So when I realized that what I was doing, I was running a program in my life that was built from an 8-year-old version of me, from the pain, I had to find the gift. The gift of appreciating who I became. And most important, the gift of who I'm becoming. So I came back from my, I spent $500,000 in personal development within a year. Like, I didn't want it to be like a decade of work. I said, how can I figure my shit out? I give myself 1 year, and I will see what do I need to do, what are the steps that I need to take, right? I came back, I started meditating, I started doing the inner work, building myself up, and that's when I realized I lost my edge. Like, the reason I was operating from what I call the sedated warrior stage is because I lost my edge. I lost that drive. How I define my edge is having the energy, the discipline, determination to be guided to execute, guided by a higher power, guided by a higher calling. So from the outside, we look good. Sedated warriors, from the outside, you can't even tell that guys become sedated warriors. Inside, you're full of uncertainty, doubt, fear. And that's how you operate, out of fear. And because you operate out of fear of not having enough, you attract more fear. And you eventually sabotage your business, your marriage, and your health.
Okay. Yeah. Everything you said, I've been through all of this stuff too, so it really resonates with me, and probably a lot of people on this podcast. I mean, this is deep stuff, trying to find your purpose. I mean, I'm 62, and I'm really, last 2.5 years, have really started focusing on that and trying to understand that and figure out what it is. I had some trauma. 08 through 12 was a big part of my trauma, but previous in life too. So that's very interesting. So How are you helping people now? So, your group is the edge, right? And so you've kind of found this purpose. And is that what you feel like is your purpose now, is the edge, trying to help men?
I never wanted to get into the personal development
I
world.
could see that.
My intention at the beginning was to bring a bunch of guys together, raise money, and take advantage of the biggest wave that was going to happen, which is real estate, right? So I put my first event in Vegas. I got a bunch of asset managers, real estate professionals, investors in a room, and that was intentional. Let's raise some capital. Let's raise some money because we're going to have a wave. It was 2013. We got 10 years. The market, I already knew what was going to happen. And I started with my journey. I started with the tunnel. I started with the drinking to frame it like, why is it that, how I became to this point, right? Nobody wanted to talk about money. Everybody wanted to talk about that. Every single man that was there, and woman, like, we need to talk about this. This is more important than the wave that's coming. So I remember I got a billionaire that approached me at that moment and said, Raul, why are you doing this? I said, well, I'm raising money. I went out, like I said, I have more than money you need. I have billions. I give you access to other billionaires. Why are you really doing this? So then I started to ask myself, like, why am I doing this? What's the purpose?
So you didn't know yet.
I didn't know that. And
Okay.
actually, because I was in the Tony Robbins world, most of that event was the clone of Tony Robbins. People used to tell me, Raul, you're like the Latin Tony. And I used to pride myself, I'm the Latin Tony. Until I started to share my story and I had to become the real Raul. And I remember having this inner conversation with God, like, God, I'm not ready for this. Just let me be the Latin Tony for a little while. I'm not, because if I become the authentic Raul and they don't like me or they don't accept you, or don't approve me or fail, then I wanted almost God to say, you know what, I'm going to let you be this, just like the pattern, right? The Raul from the Bronx, like coming back to create a persona as opposed to owning who I am. So now it's just, we run patterns. We create these characters. We create this idea, this identity unconsciously out of fear. So at that moment, he's like, no, you may never have this opportunity. If you don't step into your purpose of sharing your story, of helping men see that the darkest moments of your life, they could find a gift, you may never be able to do it again. And that's when I decided to step into it without knowing what I was going to do and trust God that he's guiding me through. So I started with big events, men and women, but then God said, who are you have been called to work with? I've been called to work with men who are battle tested, men who've gone through a lot of shit, men who've gone through the darkness. So like men who feel like the church may is nice, but may not do it for me. Personal development may be too basic. And I need more than just a business conversation. So we started doing boot camp experiences when I take men deep into the darkness, deep into like, why do you do what you do? And what's at risk if you don't find your edge? And then from that place, build that version of you that's going to be able to create a bigger impact in your business, in your marriage, in your health. And we did, the first year we did a boot camp every single month. And it was extreme. It was like,
so talk to me about the boot camp, though. I want to understand. So when you say boot camp, what do you mean by that? Like physical?
It's not physical. A lot of people think
Okay.
it's physical. Is that we call this emotional fitness. It's like creating in 3.5 days. I take guys through a process that it takes decades of self-discovery. So we go deep into pattern recognition, subconscious beliefs, like figuring out like, why do I do what I do? All these things that I've learned that I spent $500,000 with all these gurus to kind of learn about myself, I recreated in a 3-day program. Back in those days, actually, it was a 5-day program because I was still tinkering to see what worked. I started my house. I started inviting strangers to my house, and then eventually we rented a house somewhere else, and now we're doing it in hotels. It was more efficient that way. But the boot camp for me, that's our signature event because this is where we actually get to know men at a deeper level. And then businesses have been created. I'm an investor in a bunch of businesses that from guys who came to the boot camp. We create a network and a foundation of guys who know each other. Like it's a brotherhood, it's a community. So when a man goes through that experience, they're bonded for life. We have guys that have built $100 million companies. There are guys who've lost $100 million, in the market. But when they go to the boot camp, they're all the same, and they figure out that they're not alone, and they just have the tools now necessary to go back into the market and and fight the battle.
So when the guy asked you, what are you trying to do here? When did you figure, was it that moment you figured it out, or are you still kind of evolving? So get me through that.
At that moment, he said, what are you looking to do? I started to ask myself that question. So I don't know. Let me ask myself that question. Let me see what truly my calling is. And I fought it for a while, Larry. Like, do I want to be in the personal development space? Do I want to become a coach? I know 90% of the coaches are broke. 90% of the coaches are full of shit. And I didn't want to be in that market. I mean, I was making money in real estate. I didn't come to this space because I failed in my business. I'm stepping into the space because it's my calling. And I've been doing this now for 10 years. And I hear stories of men every single day that when they watch my videos, when they watch my content, like, man, I get it. Like, I'm not alone. Like, I know you've been through shit, and I know that I'm not alone. And that alone makes me feel like there is hope. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Because it's not about motivation. It's about facing your darkness. We all have darkness. A good man is not a man who doesn't have darkness. A good man is the one who has his darkness under control. So by figuring out who you are, you see that you have the good, you have the bad, you have your dark side. How do we keep it all together to be able to execute at a higher level? That's what the edge is.
No kidding. So do you do these like all over the country, or do you try to focus in this area? How do you do these? Tell us more about.
So we
these
have a
events.
network of men from all over the country.
Okay.
So the Edge Network is businessmen who want to shop in the Edge, and at this moment we're scaling it to open up to people who are companies and people who have teams, because now we realize that we only work with the 1%. But the 1% has the capacity to impact the 99% of the population. So by helping the leader, I'm helping the organization. By helping the leader, I'm helping his family as well. So we work with leaders, and it trickles down into their organization.
Really? And so they're 3.5 days.
3.5-day boot camps. We also have workshops that are introduction to that boot camp, because the boot camp is not for everyone, Larry. I only do 2 boot camps a year now.
Okay.
I'm very selective of the guys who are put through the boot camp, because those guys have to be in a place where they're going to create a bigger impact. But the workshops that we do is the framework of living life 100 days at a time. I could help you find your edge 100 days at a time. But if you never had an edge, I cannot help you. So if you never had an edge, go to Tony Robbins, go to other seminars, find your edge, and then come to me so I can help you sharpen it. Because in 100 days, we develop a system that allows men to see, where are my patterns? What am I doing for my business, for my family, for my health, my connection with God? And we have an app that we develop that gives you a score. And that app is powered by AI. So now the AI is telling you, hey, Larry, you're full of shit on this, man. You didn't do that. You said you're going to do this, but you're not doing it. Now, there's no more lying about like, oh, I'm doing the work. Every single day, you have to put in the app, what are you doing for the 4 areas of life? Your body is your temple. Your being, your purpose, your connection with God. Your business, your ability to produce money. And your bonds, which is your relationships. 4 pillars that we focus on. If you put what you're doing in those areas of the app will give you a score. And the score allows you to compete with other members in the community. And then we have teams that are competing with each other. And then in our events, we recognize the team that has the most points, and we recognize the guy who made the biggest change. So it's competition, it's association, it's accountability, and just high-level performance.
So the app actually holds you accountable every single day.
Yeah.
So you're not have to do it by yourself, which is hard. That's what I do.
Yeah, the app holds people accountable. The community is competing every 100 days, and then you're squeezing out of 1 year, 3 years. Because our motto is, could you do more in 100 days than the average man does in a year? So I could help you execute in 100 days what you probably were able to execute before in a year. So that's what people pay me, so they could compound time. So guys get 3 years out of 1 year as opposed to the regular 1 year, 12-month period.
Okay, so let's go down the pillars. So the first one you said was body. So tell me about that. Are you giving them workout regimens, nutritional?
Base hits. I'm a big believer that like you can't change your life overnight.
That's right.
But if
100%.
you could give me 15 minutes a day, that's all.
1.5.
15 minutes a day, whether it's push-ups, sit-ups, or like going to the gym is optional. Like you could do that, but minimum 50 minutes every single day for 100 days. You have to move your ass. So every single day, if you work out, you have a checkpoint. You put in the app gives you've done it. Reading something, whether it's a Bible or an inspirational book, praying and meditating. So as long as you check those 2 boxes, again, base hits, you're done. Business, moving the needle forward, doing something that's going to be able to help the business become more profitable, and learning. So learning and executing. So you do those 2 things and you check off the box. Bonds, show and tell. Show somebody that you love them and tell somebody that you love them, appreciate them. That's it, show and tell. So you see the concept is base hits. Nothing out of this world. Just condition yourself to become addicted to base hits as opposed to being addicted to home runs. And that's how you're able to build a solid foundation in 100 days.
You get 100 base hits, you get a lot of scores.
Yep. And then we teach a meditation practice too. I call it daily ritual. That's a whole different conversation where we take men deep. I have a 10-minute meditation that's in the app.
That's hard, by the way.
Yeah.
10 minutes I try to do 15 minutes. Brutal.
The way that I do it, Larry, is more for entrepreneurs who don't like meditation. So I call it the resetting your subconscious mind. So we have breath work, we have gratitude, we have power statements, and we have a visualization. So I mix all 4 modalities into this 10-minute meditation. And this is where the men that I coach, they swear by this. Every single morning you get up and it's like you're resetting your subconscious mind on a daily basis.
So I want to talk about that. So I get in every morning into my sauna and I try to pray for 15 minutes, meditate, whatever. So you already, I'm telling you stuff you already know. So obviously I'm doing this and then I'm over here and then I'm over here and then I'm over here and I got to pull myself back in. So how are you helping men? Obviously these are high-strung guys to get that in, because it's not going to, like you said, base hit. So maybe you get it for a minute today, 2 minutes next week. Walk me through that, because that's intriguing.
The first thing that I teach men is don't run away from your feelings and emotions. Okay. Like it's okay to get up every single day and feel stress. Like 90% of the time I get up on like stress, anxiety. In the past, I bottled that shit in and no, feel it. So in the exercise, I want you to feel it. I want you to see where the stress is, and not just feel it, I want you to expand it. So through the breath work that we do, we actually step into that fear. Okay, I don't want to lose a client. Okay, feel it. What does it feel like losing a client? I don't have enough money. Feel what it feels like not to have enough money. Or my wife, doesn't love me. Feel what it feels like. So instead of avoiding the feelings, feel it fully, expand it, and turn that pain into fuel. Because that's what I'm good at. I help whatever pain you have, I help you rewire and turn into fuel. So that is emotional fitness. It's like you go into the ring every single day with your emotions, and then eventually, whatever bothered you before, it's not going to bother you. Now, there's new shit that's going on every single day, but you're not bringing the hangover from the previous day. So instead of running away and just thinking of gratitude, I mean, gratitude is part of it. Like you have to, we start with gratitude, but then we go into the pain. We go into the pain because that's how we turn into fuel.
So you're meeting the pain kind of head on?
Yeah. And if you don't have pain, make shit up.
Like, I don't think there's a shortage of making shit up, though.
I mean,
it's
I have guys
there.
who say, oh, everything is right. Okay, let me ask something. Close your eyes for a minute. Think about right now. You're here right now. You get the call that your wife got into a car accident and she died. How, like, fuck, like now, like, that's pain, right? Imagine, what did you say to her this morning? What was the last time you kissed her? What was the last time you made love? What was the last time you showed? Like, now the guy's emotional, like, fuck, like I have regret. That is the deepest pain. I want guys to build themselves so they live with no regret. Because regret could be fuel. If you're afraid, like, I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of regret. Because I don't want to get into a car accident, leaving this and saying, oh, fuck, I could have, I should have, I didn't. I want to live my life every single day. Like, man, I give it everything I had. If I told to God, like, hey, God, like, you gave me this talents. I was able to multiply them. I was able to do I did my best. I didn't hide them. I wasn't afraid to use them. You know the parable of the talents, right? Mm-hmm. And God said, well, good work, a good and faithful servant. You did the best. And now I'm calling you home because your purpose is done. Now it's time for you to be with me. But regret is like, God, put me back in because I left some stuff that I could have done. Like, let me go back because I didn't leave things the way that I wanted to leave them. If you have, as a man, if you feel yourself so you don't have regret, every single day you're going to be able to give everything you fucking have and don't feel like you're failing.
It's funny, we talk about fear all the time, but we don't talk about regret a lot. Like my first book, Fear is a Liar, right? I talk about that, but I never talk about regret. And now I find at 62, I'm starting to like, okay, now that's something that now that you've said that, I'm starting to feel more of.
I have a belief that men after 50 years old, we step into what we call the power phase. It's a different energy. We could do more with that pinky than we used to do in our 30s and 20s.
Absolutely.
But if you don't have a deeper purpose, a deeper calling, then you have that regret. So what I help men do, like you could do more in the next 5 years than you did in the last 50 years.
Absolutely.
So now with that mentality, who do you want to become? What's the legacy? I have guys in their 60s talking about like, I want my great grandkids to have to talk about me. Like I want to leave the legacy of breaking generational curses. Like it is a different energy that you have. When you're in your 30s, you're trying to prove yourself. In your 40s, you're trying to maintain. After you hit 50s, you start thinking legacy. You start thinking, what are they going to say when I'm no longer here? It's no longer about you. So like the average guy that I work with is in their 50s, and after going through what I helped them go through, they see like the potential that they have, because at the end of the day, we live in a world that we're going to live until 130, 150. I mean, I have a guy right now that is working with AI, and he's looking to cure diabetes. He says, Raul, I'm breaking down the DNA that we could live to 300 years old. And no bullshit. He's like, he went to Harvard, he went to MIT, he just sold his company for $300 million. He's gonna crack it. He goes, the technology is advancing right now. We're gonna live longer. So now 50, 60, that's halfway. That's not even halfway eventually. But we're thinking, oh man, like we need to retire. Fuck retirement. Like you're gonna retire at your prime? Are you fucking kidding me? There's so much more that you could do at that age, because now you don't have to worry. Like you already know who you are. You don't have to bullshit people. You don't have to like please people. It's the best fucking stage.
It's so funny. I truly believe that. Like I'm 62. I feel better today. And it's all the stuff you're talking about. Like I know who I am now. Like you talk about things like we were actually, Claudia and I were talking about yesterday. Find something bigger than you. Start. My thing is, leave an inheritance for your children's children. Like I think about that all the time. My grandchildren motivate me. That kind of stuff, and that's so cool.
But think about how many conversations, Larry, you have with people about this. Mm-hmm. Like very limited conversations. Mm-hmm. And then you go into the room and you're like, yeah, of course you could say that, Larry. You're rich. Like, fuck you. You're rich. Yeah. You have the money. Of course you could talk about legacy. I'm trying to make ends meet, right? They don't know the times that we almost went broke. They don't know the times like, so when you have this type of conversation, I want to make sure that audience understand it's not about money.
Nope.
It's not about there's a book called Die with Zero.
Yep.
I want to recommend everybody to read that. I'm halfway through the book, and it's not about money. You gotta leave a bigger legacy than money. If money is all you have, you're the poorest motherfucker out there.
That's right. Yeah. It's a tool. That's what I say. Money is just a tool. That's all it is to me.
Money is energy, and I wake up every single day, and I feel the abundance of energy. And for me, money is an exchange of value. So I'm always looking, what's the value that I'm bringing into the world that I'm going to bring back the currency? And currency is you have to continue to circulate it. So if you have money, move it, invest it. I always tell people, you're the biggest investment for your company, for your family, for the community. A man that doesn't invest in himself doesn't believe in himself. Like I have guys who pay me 6 figures. I'm like, hey, I pay you 6 figures because I believe that I'm worth that. And they make millions, but there's some guys who pay me 6 figures that lost millions. I have a guy right now who lost $200 million. But he's a Raul, if it wasn't for what you teach, I'll be suicidal. I'll probably be depressed because I'm in the best state right now. And if within 5-6 months, he's going to make $1 billion because he has the mindset and he has the tools to be able to create that currency. He lost that money because he was trying to like shoot too high for the stars. And now he understands that he was taking too much of a risk without assessing the risk.
Well, I love all this. This is amazing. So we have to close it out. So how do we get in touch with you? What's your website, your domains, your social media?
So go to edge100challenge.com. I believe that a man could sharpen his edge 100 days at a time. So we have a 100-day challenge.
Love that.
I'm also in social media, in LinkedIn. I am I'm very active in Instagram. So Raul the Edge in Instagram, that's my tag. But just go to my website, edge100challenge.com. We have something called the Daily Edge. I do a Daily Edge podcast, 3-minute rant in my phone. I send it over to all my clients. So if you want to be in that list, go to edge100challenge.com, sign up for the Daily Edge. You get a message from me every single morning directly. I started doing it 100 days. Then it became another 100 days. Now I'm 4 years in, and I missed probably a handful of times because I was traveling out of the country. But that has been for me. That is my sharpening my edge every single day, sending a message of what's going on right now in the world, in my life, that will help somebody else sharpen their edge.
Wow, that's great. Your energy is amazing. I've really enjoyed this. This has been a very just thought-provoking interview with you today, and I really appreciate you being here. So I like to finalize my podcast with this question, and as listen to this amazing story of yours, where you started out in Ecuador and where you are today. Do you think you were born, or do you think you were made?
I think that God knew me before I was even born. So God knew who I was going to become. All I had to do was get out of the way. And the moment I allow God to work through me, I believe leaders are conduits of God. So God made me, so therefore I am made. The conditioning that I had to do is unlearn who I thought I was, so I could help Him work through me.
Wow, that's a great answer. That one's a first. Thank you very much for sharing that. Well, Raul, thank you so much for being on the Born or Made podcast. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Honor.